I will go off.
So, welcome to today's All Life is Yoga, hosted by the LaGrasse Integral Life Center in Fountain Inn, South Carolina. I'm Rade, and I am joined by Vladimir Yatsenko and also joined by H.P. Rama, who is the founder of the LaGrasse Integral Life Center. And our focus at the LaGrasse Center is the transformation of consciousness and its reflection in all aspects of life, be it relationships, family, physical activities, and even spiritual pursuits. Such transformation does not require that we leave our vacations or change our outer circumstances, but to see them in a new light and act upon them with a new consciousness. LaGrasse is very pleased to announce All Life is Yoga, a new series of discussions, talks, and interviews focused on the cultivation of a deeper and more universal consciousness and its expression and form in daily life. Sri Aurobindo says, all problems of existence are essentially problems of harmony. With this in mind, during the next 3 months, All Life is Yoga will explore ways to live more harmoniously with oneself, others, nature, and the universe at large through featured talks as today's webinar on Ayurveda. So we are greatly honored to have with us today a leading expert in the field of Ayurveda, Sonia Masocco. Welcome, Sonia. So very nice to have you here. And Sonia, as I was mentioning to HP, was one of my teachers at Dr. Laud's Ayurvedic Institute in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And she is a seasoned clinical herbalist and Ayurvedic practitioner with over 20 years of experience and currently teaches clinical herbalism at the University of New Mexico and maintains a private practice in Albuquerque. So today, Sonia will be sharing with us Ayurveda's multifaceted approach towards wellness and prevention of disease, and how, by understanding and applying Ayurvedic concepts, a more balanced state of health can be achieved on all levels, body, mind, and spirit. So before turning it over to Sonia, we will be taking the last 15 or 20 minutes to answer questions. And so if any participants have questions throughout her talk, just simply put it in the Q&A box and Sonia will address those towards the end. Okay, so Sonia, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Rade. And thank you, everybody, for joining. And I'm very grateful for this opportunity to share my take on Ayurveda. It's true, I've been studying Ayurveda for over 20 years, and it always keeps on giving. There's always something more to learn. And I find that it truly is a gift. And although it is considered an Eastern Indian system of medicine, we really need to consider it a philosophy of life. And, Ayurveda is based on the Vedas. It's based on a 3,000-year-old science. On the other hand, it's the modern application and the day to day application that is what is necessary to be understood. So, in Ayurveda, the most important thing is to know yourself in order to make adequate choices. Once you understand yourself, then you understand the qualities and the qualities of the things that surround you and that are outside of you, and how this can work in balance or disharmony, and basically allowing you to make the correct choices for then being able to live your dharma, or what we call your aim of life. So Ayurveda is truly the science of life. It's not about becoming obsessed with food or becoming obsessed with medicine or becoming obsessed with anything. It's about actually becoming obsessed with life. And so I must say, I'm very honored to be here. And HP mentioned that I look so young, but I think I look younger and younger by more and more that I apply Ayurveda to my life. When I looked at myself in pictures that I have when I was living in Asia many years ago, I think I looked older than what I do look now. But I think that actually understanding Ayurveda to the smallest degree, and amplifying that in every aspect of the life allows us to live with more awareness and also with more light. And that is what is most important. So, Ayurveda again is called the science of life, and it gives us very basic information, and also very deep information. The more we study ancient texts, the more we delve into the medicine, it gets very complex, but we also need to be able to distill it and make it simple. And in this distilling, we always go back to the five elements of Ayurveda. According to Ayurveda, there is ether, air, fire, water, and earth. And these are the five elements that constitute the personal constitution of the one person, but it also surrounds us. These five elements are in everything that surround us. So it's in the music that we hear, the colors that we are surrounded with, the furniture, everything has these five elements. And it's up to us to be able to distill and have awareness and be the observer in order to be able to really hone in on our capacity of digesting the information that is actually bombarding us from the outside, and actually then discerning, do I need to allow this to be, or do I not need this in my life at this moment? So the five elements of Ayurveda again are ether, air, fire, water, earth. For convenience, we actually say that ether and air form the principle of vata, the fire and the water form the principle of pitta, and then the water and earth form the principle of kapha. So these are three energies, and they're in the physical human body, but again, they're also in all things that surround us. So ether and air, as you can imagine, is very light because this is the manifestation of consciousness into matter. So ether and air is very high consciousness, and there's also a very mobile quality, and it's also very, so there's like this energy, which is prana, that is within ether and air, and it's able to captivate things, but it's also easy to get distracted by things. Now, fire and water, instead, these are two chemical actions. And in Ayurveda, this is the energy for transformation, for digestion, for processing things, but also for allowing things to manifest. So we consider this we call it the Agni, but we also, within the Agni, there is Tejas, which is the spark. So the spark resides in this Pitta, which is again this fire and water. But for all things to be human, for all things to be materialized in this world, we need water and earth. And this is what not only is the building block of integration of matter and basically nourishment, but it's also what protects us. You know, it's our body, it's our shield. And so according to Ayurveda, we actually do need all three. We cannot just be one or the other or the other. If we would be ether and air, we would be spirits, not without a body. If we would just be fire and water, we would just be a chemical volcano. And if we would just be water and earth, we would be just earth and water, just very dense and very dull. So according to Ayurveda, we do need all three, but we also need to understand what is the balance of these three energies within us. So in Ayurveda, there's this concept that like increases like. And there's also the idea that opposites do balance. So the most important thing is to really check and be very honest and not have unrealistic expectations when you do these questionnaires of Ayurveda to find out what your constitution is. It is true. I would have liked to be tall. I would have liked to be skinny, and I would have liked to be, beautiful and blonde.
But you look very young, Sonia, so you have that.
Yeah, great. That's all the kapha that's showing. But basically, when you're doing these questionnaires, you really have to, come and be truthful. And it's like I've never been a hiker, never liked hiking. I might live in a beautiful place that has beautiful hiking trails, but that's just not my constitution. So I'm not a vata person. And honestly, it's true that I manifest many things, but that's because I really work at it. But, I'm a calf individual. And so, you know, you always have to be honest and be true because you're not competing with anybody. The only person you have to be honest with is yourself. And in Ayurveda, you have to really know yourself and know what is your primary constitution, what is your secondary constitution, and what is your third constitution. And because of this, you will know what you need to work on because basically the object of health is to live your dharma. So you're going to be working with whatever cards you were dealt with. You inherit things from the mother, mainly the soft tissues. You inherit things from the father, mainly the bones. But your degree of happiness or unhappiness, or your desire to do things, the tone of your voice, the flicker in your eyes, that's yours. And what you decide to do, what you decide to study, that's also yours. And what you decide to do in this planet is also your responsibility. That does not depend on anybody else. So, according to Ayurveda, you need to know yourself, know what is your makeup, and then know what would actually allow your makeup to thrive. So, I'm a kapha individual, typically. I'm heavy, dense, and dull. But obviously, you're listening to me, and I don't sound heavy, dense, and dull, and I don't have the monotone voice, which is typical of kapha. And basically, it's because I use Ayurveda to actually bring a little bit more fire in me. And I live in a great place that has a lot of prana around me. So now I'm in a place where I can thrive because I'm utilizing my knowledge to actually live better and to live my dharma. So, my dharma is to empower people in plant medicine and empower people in the use of Ayurveda. And the only way I can do this is if I get out of the couch. So according to Ayurveda, if you're sitting on a hard chair, that's a vata type chair. So you'll eventually move because you're uncomfortable. But actually, it allows you to go on. If you're instead in a very comfortable, soft sofa, that's a kapha type of chair. And you might fall asleep in it, but you're not really going to do very much for your community. So you basically have to decide how you surround yourself, who you are, and what actually allows you to do better. So, beyond that, Ayurveda will say we actually have to have also a lot of compassion because what we're seeing in people is not necessarily what they are, it might just be the conglomeration of their physical being and what is affecting them at the moment. So you might be attracted to someone because they have flair, but that might be because their container of vata is full of prana and you're attracted to that because you don't have it. Or you might be attracted to somebody that has all this power, ego, drive, and that's because their container of pitta is full of fire. And you might be attracted to someone that is loving and cooking or just sharing, and that's because their container of kapha is full of ojas, which makes their auric field more shiny, but also more lovable, more warm, and more attractive. So at the end of the day, we have to decide: do we? Is that really a true attraction, or is that just a balance? Because opposite balance. So like increases like, but opposites balance. And then Ayurveda will say what we are experiencing in the body is also going to be a result of the off balance of the dosha. So if we're having nerve problems, Ayurveda will say, well, vata is high. If we're having bleeding tendencies, or if we're having issues with the liver, Ayurveda will say pitta is high. If instead we're having congestion or basically growths of some sort, Ayurveda will say kapha is high. So Ayurveda becomes a little bit of um, a window into which to see what is happening in your body. And if you actually pay attention, then it's easy to correct. So, in the process, so for one, we will all need to go eventually to mapi.com because they have a test which is very beautiful and easy. So that's again mapi.com. They have a dosha test. Be honest. Don't elude yourself. Oh, I'm skinny. Oh, I don't sleep. I sleep or whatever. Be
How do
honest.
you, how do you spell that, Sonia? I'm going to
It's
put it in the chat box.
mapi.com.
Oh, maybe. Okay, thanks. I'll
Yeah,
put it in the chat box
it's
for
it's
folks.
the Maharishi Ayurveda thing, but they actually have a very good, and it'll give you what is your primary, your secondary, and your third. So first, that's everybody should do that, and that way they're very clear. It's very true that sometimes you meet somebody, or you meet an Ayurvedic Vaidya, or you meet an Ayurvedic practitioner, or someone, or a yoga teacher that will say you, oh, you're Vata, or you're Kapha, or you're Pitta, but that might not be true. That might just be what you're is showing now at the moment, but that might not be your true nature. So basically, you have to be really honest when you do these questionnaires. That way, we should see the true nature. It is very true that we always want to address first what is off balance. But beyond that, we would actually want to address first what is toxicity. So first rule of thumb is to eliminate toxicity and then balance the dosha that is out and then keep your own dosha in balance. So that's the way of doing things. But typically, Ayurveda will say what we're seeing in a person in terms of emotions or what we're seeing in a person in terms of external manifestation, this can just be a manifestation of an organ or it can be a manifestation of a tissue. So then it comes back to who is this person? And so it's about having more awareness. Now, according to Ayurveda, the Vata person is always going to be having a little bit more anxiety and a little bit more fear. The Pitta person is going to be a little bit more critical and more judgmental. And the Kapha person is typically going to be either a joyful person or a very sad person, but they're always attached to something. So Ayurveda said, well, the expression of the person being fearful or angry or attached is an emotion which is basically ephemeral because this can change as the doshas can change in the body. We can change what we eat, and now we're feeling much better, and now we're manifesting in a different way. So by understanding our own constitution, we can then select to do things that can then balance ourselves. So, Ayurveda will say the Vata person will normally be attracted to uh, stimulants or be attracted to multiple things because like likes like. However, like increases like. So, the best thing for the Vata person to do typically is to actually have a routine. And I must say, in so many years of practice, most Vata people hate the idea of having a routine. When I tell them to have a routine, they always say, oh no, that's just not good enough because I'm a very creative person and having a routine is not for me. But in Ayurveda, you can be still creative within a routine. So you create a routine, a daily routine, a weekly routine, a monthly routine, and then you actually allow in that routine time to be creative. So it's not about stifling you, but it's actually allowing you to have more energy to manifest that creativity. Because many times the Vata person changes multiple times in their lifetime, jobs, desires, houses, directions. That's their typical thing. But they're so close to consciousness by having that ether and air. And they have so much affinity towards understanding the metaphysical and understanding the subtleties that they can be doing many things, but they usually run out of energy or get very um, disheartened, or they get very isolated. And this is just the nature of ether and air. So, according to Ayurveda, we need to understand the natures of these primordial elements. And then once we really grasp them, then we use them to our advantage. The matter is to also become an observer. So in Ayurveda, we start observing not only the elements and the qualities of those elements, but we also start observing the self. And then in the moment that we start observing the self, we start having a separation between soul and mind. And we start actually having more acknowledgement of what is our general purpose and our general direction. So, yes, Ayurveda is a science of a system of medicine, but truly it's a philosophy of life, because now we're looking at things with more consciousness. And this is what we want to achieve when we do Ayurveda. We want to be able to understand the little, the I call it the alphabet of Ayurveda, in order to use that information to grow consciousness. And the idea is also to not be utilizing energy uselessly in a day to day, but to conserve the energy to really live why the reason you are here. So according to Ayurveda, every individual is a unique individual with unique gifts, and everyone is supposed to find what their gift is and then act on that gift. So, learning the doshas, learning what to eat and not to eat, these are just like the ABC's elementary kindergarten. And then as we evolve in the study of Ayurveda, we see in between the sutras. So when we're reading the ancient texts, everything is done in a sutra. A sutra is actually a poetic verse, but there's always it unravels, it becomes bigger, there's more meaning behind just the words. And typically we say that the ancient text, or the texts that we use in Ayurveda, were written when they thought that there was going to be a period of darkness. So they had to be written for people to know the basic material. But there's so much more that needs to be also unfolded. So the idea is we need to know this basic of who we are. We need to understand our qualities. We need to understand the qualities of that which surrounds us. And then we are already in charge, and we take responsibility for our own health. So there is this word that I always liked in Ayurveda. It's called pranya parad, which is basically, uh, intellectual blasphemy or crimes against wisdom. And it's like, when you know better, there is no going back. If you know that you have insomnia and you know that you're a Vata individual and you decide to go hiking in the wind, well, you're doing that to yourself. Now, so that is a crime against wisdom because you knew better. And I also find that when we study a little bit more Ayurveda, Ayurveda looks actually at seven systems of philosophy, and the seven systems of philosophy have some basic truths that are very clear and also very applicable. There's always going to be this idea of cause and effect. we eat this is going to happen. If you're just eating rice crackers, the fact of you feeling very light is going to be one thing. If you're just eating mushrooms, you're going to be feeling very heavy. So there's this cause and effect. There's also the fact, however, of making a ritual, considering yourself sacred, and basically uh, giving, having compassion towards yourself, but also honoring the self as an expression of life. So in Mimamsa philosophy, there is this thing about having rituals and having also mantras, but there's also this thing of taking your day with sacredness and actually honoring the people around you with sacredness, and actually having daily routines for yourself, but also seasonal routines, but truly honoring every day as a precious gift. And if we really would do that, then we would be in such a better, like, overall society, if everybody would honor life as a precious gift. Then in yoga, because Ayurveda also embraces the philosophy of yoga, it's about a way of being, rules of being in society, the non-stealing. There's so many things that we actually learn in yoga that are important just for society to work as a whole. And if our energy would not be dispersed by calming fires, by managing illnesses, or by managing or being constantly in crisis, we would actually have more energy to be able to grow and also to act, share and communicate in a more respectable way. So, according to Ayurveda, there are going to be layers of being. So, we have a physical body, but we also have a mental sheath, which is really related also to the foods that we eat. If we would be constantly eating things that are going to be, we call them rajasic, but basically foods that are going to take a lot for the digestive process to occur. Well, now our we're only given an X amount, and so our pitta, or that fire, our metabolism, can either digest things or can digest food. And so, if we're consuming this fire to just digest food, we cannot digest also the things that are happening in our life. So, in Ayurveda, there's this idea of looking at the whole, knowing the self, knowing what is our constitution, knowing the constitution of that which surrounds us, and then establishing what serves us to be able to go further. The most important thing, however, is to have awareness and discernment, because you have to be able to discern what will serve you and what will not serve you. And ultimately, you were born alone by yourself and you will actually die by yourself. So Ayurveda says it's up to you to decide what is good or not good for you. Nobody can do that for you. Nobody can, people can actually guide you, but it's your personal experience that will actually allow you to learn. So you can learn from teachers, you can learn from books, but your personal experience has a very important part. So it's important. Nobody can fix you. You have to do the work, and so we can teach you. We can give you the elements, but you have to assimilate them. And I find that Ayurveda is a little bit of a difficult language. When you read it in a book, it really sounds really difficult to understand. But truly, I find that if you understand the vocabulary, then it becomes super simple, and it can be as difficult as one wants it to be or as simple as one wants it to be. But the aim of Ayurveda is for giving us the knowledge for life. It's not for health. Nowhere in Ayurveda does it say health. Ayur is life, Veda is science. So it's a science of life. And we do know how to be healthy with Ayurveda, because Ayurveda will say if your doshas are accumulating or being provoked or spreading, we need to take measures in diet and lifestyle to bring that back. If it has already entered a defective space and now we have a disease, we have herbal remedies, panchakarma, a lot of things to be able to rein that back. But things that we actually bring health are things that we do every day, are in our what we drink and what we eat, what time we choose to wake up in the morning, how much exercise we decide to do, how much pranayama we decide to do, how much meditation we decide to do, if we're doing self massage, if we are doing visualizations, all of these things, and even if we're listening to music, or even if we're diffusing things, all of these things affect where we are and affect what we do. And so, and how we are able to then use our energy to make things happen. So, I have to always return to myself as an example because it makes it easier. Again, I am a Kapha Pitta individual. As a Kapha Pitta individual, honestly, I would prefer to be in my garden and just sip some tea rather than even plucking any type of weed. That's, yeah, I could see them grow, but I don't want to do anything. So that would be my true nature, would be just really kind of lazy. Not kinda, lazy. Okay. However, that does not make a beautiful garden. And a beautiful garden does not make for uh, happy plants. And happy plants does not make it for attractive for pollinators and birds and things to come. So, in order for something to occur, I have to change. And if I want to have a beautiful garden which produces beautiful herbs that actually I can also allow to be in other people's houses, well, I have to get out of my chair and pull the weeds and do some work. Okay? And honestly, because we live in, so I, there is this thing, and it goes back a little bit to the question that Maurice actually has here. At the end of the day, we think that we are individuals, but actually we are part of a society. We are also part of the planetary system. And so we are not alone. And so any individual choice affects everybody who is outside. So if I decide, so I actually have, so this is my new office. And actually, I'm not in my office at the new office because it's a disaster. We just moved. However, I have a great apothecary. And in our apothecary, we have things that I collect, wildcrafted. There are things that I grow. There are also things that are coming from India. There's like many, many plants in there. However, if I want to share the knowledge of herbal plants, if I want to share the knowledge of Ayurveda, if I want to employ a number of people and allow them to expand and live well, I, as an individual, have to change. So, my dharma is to empower people in plant medicine. In order to do that, I cannot be just sitting having tea in my garden, looking at things and not acting. And because the energy of acting does not come natural to me, I actually have to force myself to be up in the morning early and actually do some sun salutations. I actually have to normally, typically, when I teach, I would actually always have some red or orange or yellow around me to have a little bit more pita and a little bit more fire. And actually, living in New Mexico is fantastic because there's enough prana that I can harness the prana from the outside. And this actually can the conversation can flow because there is a good movement of this prana. So I know myself and I know how I can do things to live my dharma. So it's actually up to everybody to figure out what is their gift. And according to Ayurveda, it is your duty to figure out what is your gift. It is a duty to figure out what what is your constitution, what is your gift, and actually embrace the knowledge of food, of so diet and lifestyle and sleep and all of these things in order for you to live. Because that way you can truly live fully. So that's the most important piece. So, in this class, I was just giving you a little bit of breadcrumbs of Ayurveda. Eventually, you might want to read a little bit more, or you might want to even join us for our little segment that we'll have of the five sense therapies and how Ayurveda looks at music, how Ayurveda looks at touch, how Ayurveda looks at color, how Ayurveda looks at smells, how Ayurveda looks at taste, and how this impacts Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and how you actually can improve what is happening in your physiology just by doing a few things. So for example, if I wake up and I'm too congested or I'm too heavy in nature, which is my own nature, Ayurveda would say, well, maybe I need a very vigorous head massage. Maybe I should be doing udvartana with some raw powders. Maybe I should be listening to some Spanish guitar because that it has a lot of pita in it. So there would be a lot of things that I can do to get a move on. If instead I'm having a lot of insomnia, or I'm having a lot of gas, or I'm having a lot of mobile quality, Ayurveda will say, well, maybe we have to work with the sense therapies that are in the heavier version. So we're not listening to music and we're not doing friction massage because those are in the realm of ether and air. But now we want to work with foods, or now we want to work with scents, and these can actually balance better the vata person. So pita sometimes is a little bit more tricky, but we will have time to cover also what we can do for the pita person. Ayurveda normally likes to use cooling measures and water and actually also raw foods, but that's not good for everybody. So in Ayurveda, for some people, a medicine can be a medicine. For some people, a medicine can be a poison. And we just need to figure out who we are, and that way we know what to apply exactly. And the more we, learn, the more you will be really happy. Some things will be, you're already doing it by nature, because I find that in Ayurveda there's a lot of things that we do already by nature when we are in balance. But it's true that some things we actually have to learn. And so that is going to be something that we will do together. So, all right, I do see some questions coming up. And so I want to go actually back to the first question that came at the beginning of the series. That was Maurice or Baptiste, Maurice Baptiste. I'm not sure. But anyway, he was asking of what Ayurveda would think about vaccination for Corona. I don't think that there is one straight answer, but I do believe that, you know, in Ayurveda, there's the thought that we are manifesting from a macrocosm to a microcosm, and that our kind of journey through life is actually to again be able to reach the macrocosm. Um, and there's also the fact that when we're searching typically for our dharma, and the reason ojas will come is so that principle of immunity comes when there is a reason beyond the self. So if we have to be receiving a vaccine in order for the entire population, or the entire, so for the family, or for the community, and for the city, or for the state, to be in a place where we can all live in a happier way, then there should be no obstacle in doing that. So again, it goes from microcosm to macrocosm. So whatever is necessary for the embetterment of the community overall. And so at this point, for the embetterment of the community, it would be the proper thing to do.
Actually, Sonia, if you don't mind, I have a question as you were talking about dharma, and it seems very interesting, if I understand what you're saying, is that our constitution, our physical constitution, and even perhaps our mental constitution could actually be blocking us from fulfilling our dharma. And so
Absolutely.
even though we are born with a certain constitution and a certain guna or mindset, um, the goal may not necessarily be to keep those in balance, depending on the dharma. So what I'm thinking of as an example is I'm not a creative person whatsoever, but if that were my dharma and I am primarily pitta, fire, let's say, then the goal would be to what? To try to transform that or use some of the higher qualities or different qualities of pitta to allow to bring out that creativity, change my environment. Maybe just give me some ideas as to how that works between when you're in that situation of a dharma not being supported necessarily by the Constitution.
Well, I mean, I have my own example, but let's say that your example, for example, you have to be more creative than your pizza constitution can handle, or that actually the nature. However, you're very clear of your dharma of being the creative, or somehow you've matched your Vedic chart with, Ayurveda honors always yoga as a sister science, as well as the Vedic astrology as a sister Jyotisha, as a sister science. And we would say, well, we now have to see where you land. Where you land might not be exactly where your physical body lands. So now let's say that your pitta is high, and the creativity really lives in vata. But Ayurveda will say we have to be careful, because Vata is ether and air, and it can easily push Pitta, the fire, and it can deplete the body, because we can actually have a rampant fire going all over the place if we just, try to do the Vata things to get more creativity. So, in order to really balance, first you need to know yourself. Then you would need to know what qualities of the Vata do I really need to increase. I need to increase the light quality, not the mobile, just the light quality, the subtle quality. And so you kind of start discerning that. And then because you are aware that Vata can easily push Pitta and basically create havoc, you might decide, I might want to increase my Kapha in order not to have the vata that I'm going to be provoking go out of place. So you can actually build on that. So it is actually possible to build on the dosha in order to not get off balance. So that's why it becomes a very delicate balance. And
Yeah, definitely.
according to Ayurveda, you not only are aware of yourself, and you're aware of the things outside of you, but you're also aware of the time of day. You're also aware of the season. That way, you know where the delicate balance is, and you know what it needs to be done to protect yourself. So, but basically, when you're looking at Vata being the kind of prana, communication, creativity, maybe not all of them are necessary to have what you need. You might need the light quality or the subtle quality. And those can be actually triggered by increasing the ether and air. So it might be that you just need to take a flight somewhere, or you might need to go to a higher altitude because like increases like. So it might be that you might be more inspired by going to a higher altitude than being at a lower altitude. Um, so
Perfect.
basically,
Yeah, those are
you know,
great examples. That's
instead of going to a
great.
beach vacation, you might need to go to Telluride. So,
I'm
so
all
you,
for that.
so you just kind of decide, oh, wait, what do I really need? So
Perfect.
yeah, so and really it is about your decisions. So if you need to be writing a book or you need to be creating something more dynamic, I would highly suggest either getting on a plane or going to a high altitude because like increases like. You're closer to ether and air. The air is more rarefied, but you have expansive vistas, or go in a room with nothing on a wall.
Mm,
This is very vata. And so, for example, when I have
excellent.
to create a new lesson plan, I don't want to be in the apothecary. There are too many jars. There's too much stuff there. That would give me a lesson plan just for plant medicine. But if I want to create something more expensive, I have to come to a room where there is nothing. In that way, I have more access to that creativity.
Perfect. Great. And you have another good question here from Eric in the Q&A. I'm 50 plus years old, and you're reading it, so you can go ahead.
No,
Oh, okay.
actually,
I thought you were reading. I'm 50 plus years old. I feel quite weaker than I was 3 years ago. The doctor tested everything, and those are normal. Is it possible to regain the energy and strength with Ayurveda?
Eric, I'm 50 plus. Okay? So the answer is yes, absolutely. So if I'm 50 plus years old and I can do it, I can tell you, you can do it. But yes, it is actually possible. The first thing is to be able to. So I find that we typically carry things that we don't need to carry. Okay, so according to Ayurveda, the first thing to do is to eliminate toxicity. This toxicity is not only a physical toxicity of what is by what you've eaten or what you have, not digested, but it's also a mental toxicity of, the could have, should have, would have's, or what, the things of the past. The things of the past are past. And so we have to take them, we have to look at them, we have to analyze them with clarity, and then get rid of them because they just hold you back. Okay, so basically, whatever experience that you've experienced is very nice. However, we don't have to be living in the past. We have to take what we can as a gift. What did we learn? And then once we see that, we can actually get rid of it. And we don't live in the past because part of your energy is in the past instead of being in the now. So, one of the classic things that I usually tell people, especially when they've moved from country to country or from job to job, is to truly always be present and actually make sure that all of you is right here, right now. So there's no part of you in like the house with your mother or the house with some old friend or in some other country. All of you is right here, right now. So if you actually grab all of you right here, right now, you start already experiencing something different. And so you make this a daily practice, and eventually you'll feel that this is not something that you have to ask for. It actually comes natural, all of you, right here, right now. And again, according to Ayurveda, it's about also the choices that we make in our diet and in our lifestyle, and basically with the things that surround us. And so it's a good thing eventually to, get rid of the old. And I'm not saying that you have to become a Mary Kondo and get rid of everything in your house, but, whatever it creates stagnant energy should not remain. But the idea is that ojas comes and change comes when there is a reason for it to come. So if you just want to just appear better because you're 50, well, that can or cannot happen. But if your desire to have more energy is because now you want to empower youth, or you want to help the society, or you want to do an apprenticeship program, or you want to, delve into something, well, then yes, there's a reason for health to come, and it will. So the most important thing is finding the aim, finding the dharma.
You've mentioned ojas a couple times. Maybe you can explain a little bit by what Ayurveda means by ojas.
Okay, so ojas, according to Ayurveda, is this principle of immunity, but it's also, we call it also the halo around the saints, or the aura around people, the power that people have that is non-tangible. According to Ayurveda, ojas actually is a byproduct of kapha. So kapha has ojas intrinsically, and actually things that you can eat like dates or ghee or um, milk will contain ojas. So they can become this principle of, or honey, they can become this principle of immunity, or it could just become fat, depending depending on if there's a will. But on the other hand, Ayurveda will also say that in order to for you to grab the prana from the outside, it's the prana is outside. It takes the tejas of pitta. So it takes the pitta to be able to capture it from the outside, but it takes ojas to allow it to circulate in the body. So you have to have ojas. And so you have to be eating well. You have to be, because otherwise you're just creating fat. But basically, there needs to be this desire for the ojas to manifest within. According to Ayurveda, if we look at the text, they're going to say it's like the this compound is about the size of what fits in the palm of a hand, but it circulates all over the body. But what it's circulating is the life force, that chi, the shakti. So you can grab it if you have enough pitta, but you can keep it, that shakti, if you have enough ojas. So ojas is the principle of immunity, is the structural building integration block. It is the principle of nourishment. It also is what keeps us healthy, and it's also what gives you that shakti power. That oomph. And sometimes you see it, but you can't put your finger on what are you seeing. Why does there's something about Alma? Why is there something about Oprah? What is it? It's ojas. What you're seeing is not, you know, the person. It's the ojas that person is
Hmm.
actually having.
Hmm. Good, good. And I see a couple people are asking if you teach online or webinar classes, or if you do consultations.
Okay, well, the consultations are going by the wayside, I must say, just because I'm getting busier and busier. However, I do have a program for, like, the Ayurveda program. We're going to start again at the University of New Mexico. So that's going to be online.
Oh, good.
So we are going to have that. I also teach for an Ayurveda school. And there it's very exciting because there's a number of young students very eager to learn more. And it's always nice to be part of those clinical case studies. And sometimes, again, Ayurveda is not only about herbs or throwing tea or spices at people, but it's actually sometimes about, these things of philosophy of life, and,
Absolutely.
really encouraging people to look beyond the medical aspect, and look beyond, and really embrace that spiritual side, or the understanding of Ayurveda.
Yeah, and that's a good point because, I run into people quite a bit who don't know much about Ayurveda, but they've heard the term and they see it as a system that supports the health of the body, right? They don't even realize that this is an integral system here, that it addresses both the physical and the emotional and the mental and the spiritual.
Absolutely.
It's and most of these ancient healing systems, whether it's from India or China or wherever, are and were integral approaches to health that it seems that we've lost today.
Right. One of my herbal teachers in Ayurveda, although they don't even call it herbal, they call it Dravya Guna Vijnana, which means knowledge of substances, knowledge of the quality of substances. He was saying that actually everything is vibration. At the end of the day, every herb is a vibration. And what we're, although there are, specific characteristics, there's going to be qualities of these herbs that are based in vibration. And that's what is
Sure.
actually contributing to the healing. So it's not a matter of the material substance, it's a matter of the frequency of things. And so I really believe that. I do think that there's Ayurveda is beyond the food, it's beyond just doing this for that. It truly gives us a pathway to have more consciousness, and in that consciousness things change and evolve. And the more we access that information, the better it is. But we have to start somewhere. So learning the basic alphabet is one thing, but we cannot remain just confined to that.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, obviously the body is the vessel instrument of consciousness. So without a fit body, without a healthy body, it's very difficult to have that spirit come through as strong and as high in consciousness as we would like. So
Right.
it's in fact the mental and emotional also become the vessels. So I know my time at the Dr. Ladd's Institute and my time that one summer, spending time with you and having you work with me in developing tinctures for the different planets as well as different systems, Ayurvedic systems. It was absolutely amazing. I have personally never met anyone that knows as much about herbs and essential oils as you do, Sonia. And you offer a number of wonderful products also on your website. So I would just encourage anyone that hasn't been out to her website, and let me just, it's soniamasocco.com. To go out and view it. And we really just want to also encourage all of you to join Sonia this Thursday as well as next Thursday for a 3-hour intensive. It'll be an hour and a half each time and 7 to 8:30 on Eastern Daylight Time. And it is exactly what Sonia had been mentioning earlier, is that she will be addressing the 5 sense therapies, how we go about understanding and recognizing and nourishing the senses, whether it's sight, hearing, touch, sense, smell, or taste. And maybe you can just say a few more words about that, Sonia. But I also want to let people know that anybody that's here today, they'll be getting a special email invitation, and please register. She's just a wonderful, wonderful resource in Ayurveda and has a lot of knowledge in this area of 5 senses.
Right. And as I was mentioning to Rada before you all joined, in that, 1.5 hours, there's going to be a PowerPoint presentation. There's going to be some handouts for you to be able to eventually use this and really really understand and really experience also. And then also have some tools available for you when you're not online with us. That way, or at least have a better understanding, and you can also experience and experiment on these things. But truly, in Ayurveda, everyone has, so we do have, for example, if you go to the website, a vata oil, a pitta oil, a kapha oil. But realistically, even the stroke of how you
Mhm.
apply an oil changes if the person is vata or pitta or kapha. The music that you might be putting in the on the in the evening for yourself or in the morning for yourself will change if you're a vata or a pitta or a kapha, or if you're just undergoing some vata derangement or pitta derangement, kapha derangement.
This
So
happens.
it happens quite a bit. In the moment there is some change, it could be a seasonal change or an office change or a house change or, or someone passed away or somebody's getting married, there can be, or, you're just moving house. These type of things, according to Ayurveda, increase vata. And now you become forgetful or distracted or having problems communicating. Well, according to Ayurveda, there are things, you could use the vata oil, but if you massage it playing this other music and also smelling this other thing, you and eating the right things in the evening, the next day you're good to go, and you won't have the forgetfulness or the anxiety or the fear, or the sense of isolation or that depression that can come and go. So, according to Ayurveda, there's always going to be uh, a cause and effect. And if we're more, the more we are aware of the causative factors, the more we can avoid having a condition. So if I know that, I could easily get diarrhea, for example, if the pitta is too high, and then it's summer and I have, chili or hot spicy foods, and then I go walk in the sun. Ayurveda will say, well, that's a causative factor of having diarrhea. So if you know that already, just don't eat the spicy food, or don't go out eating in the sun, or don't drink the alcoholic beverage. This is a known cause to an effect. So according to Ayurveda, if I'm feeling dull, and on the other hand, somebody's in a group setting deciding to smoke marijuana. According to Ayurveda, the marijuana initially is vata, but then it's super kapha. So if I'm feeling dull, that's just a direct effect of the cause. And so maybe if somebody is of that constitution, they should be avoiding certain substances. So we're going to learn more and more about what's a good thing for us and what is harmful for us. And sometimes you by having the guideline, then you can navigate, and you can also decide, what type of day am I having today? What do I need? And so this
Would
is,
would you suggest, Sonia, that maybe we send out, with the announcement, the, dosha questionnaire so people can come
oh,
to
yeah,
that, intensive already having some idea
so
of
that would
what
be
their
wonderful.
doshic constitution is?
Yes, that
Okay.
would be wonderful.
We'll
Yes.
send a link out to it.
Mhm.
Good. Well, there are no other questions, and really, really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and knowledge and wisdom in Ayurveda with us, Sonia. And we look forward to Thursday night
Yes,
with your intensive. And
it's
thank you so much.
okay. You're welcome. Have a good
Namaste.
evening.
You too.
Thank you.